Hello everyone and welcome to the final pair we'll be covering from the quarterfinals of this year's FIDE World Cup. It is a game between Arjun, Erigaisi and Praggnanandhaa, and if you've watched the match, you know what I'm talking about. This was such a nail-biter. I don't think we've seen such action in the FIDE World Cup so far. It actually took 9 games for the winner of this match to be decided, so I will tell you that, and I will show you 2 games from this match that I thought were very, very interesting. So let's dive straight into it and see who will qualify for the semifinals of the FIDE World Cup. Well, if Magnus will not play in the Candidates Tournament, this could also be a direct ticket to the Candidates Tournament for whoever wins this match. That being said, let's check it out. Arjun has the white pieces and he opens with pawn to e4. Now this is from the faster rapid section. The 25-minute rapid games both ended in a draw, and this is the first game of the 10-minute rapid section game. So e5, e4, e5, we have d4, Arjun goes for the center game, e captures on d4, and now queen captures on d4. I thought it'd be really cool if he went for c3, but it's okay, it's a very serious game. So knight to c6, we have queen to e3 and knight to f6. We have bishop to d2, bishop to e7, and now pawn to c4, going for this Marozzi type structure, holding on that d5 square very tight. We have knight to g4. And believe it or not, this is already a new move by Pragg. So now, as of move 6, we have a completely new game. We have queen back to e2, and now pawn to d6. We have knight to c3, and now bishop to h4. Pragg puts pressure on that f2 pawn, and Arjun just kicks it away. g3, bishop to f6, and now pawn to h3. Kicks away the knight. We have knight g to e5, and now castles queen side. We have knight to d4, putting pressure on the queen here, and queen to e3. We have pawn to c5, cementing that knight on d4, and knight to d5, an excellent square for Arjun's knight. We have bishop to e6, and now pawn to f4, kicking the knight away from e5, knight e back to c6, and now bishop to c3, putting pressure on the d4 knight. We have castles, and now knight captures on f6, so eliminating one of the defenders and also a potential attacker before continuing to advance those kingside pawns, as we do have castles on opposite sides of the board, so it does make sense to push those pawns. We have queen captures, now knight to f3. We have queen back to e7, and bishop captures on d4. We have c captures on d4, knight captures, and queen captures on d4, and we end this very nice variation with Arjun, if you counted the pawns, is up a pawn. But it does seem like Pragg is getting a lot for the position, and he plays pawn to b5, which you really can't accept. I mean, you could, but then if c captures on b5, bishop captures on a2, now the b1 square is covered, rook is coming to c8 with check. And you could even play this. I mean, it's not lost or anything. Let's say bishop to d3, rook f to c8 with check, king can come to d2 to e3, and the king will be very safe on e3. But, I mean, if you don't have to play this, maybe skip it. So instead, we have king to b1, and now bishop captures on c4. We have bishop captures, b captures, and queen captures on c4. An extra pawn is perfectly fine for Arjun. He doesn't want to push it. We have rook to h2, pawn to a5. We have rook to h2, and now pawn to a4. Arjun stops further advancement of the pawn via pawn to a3, and now rook f to c8 attacks the queen, queen to d3, and now pawn to h6. And now you could start pushing right away, but first we have rook to c2, offering a rook trade, and Pragg trades rooks. We have rook captures, and now queen to e6, putting pressure on that h3 pawn. So g4, and now queen to f6. We have pawn to f5, as the f4 pawn was hanging, and now rook to b8. And if you look at this position, you're probably thinking, all right, Pragg really made Arjun put his pawns on weird squares, because now none of the pawns can really advance forward. The queen paralyzes that, and he has constant pressure against the b2 pawn. Obviously, he's very much winning here. Believe it or not, this is very close to lost for Pragg, because Arjun just plays, first he plays king a2, and now after rook to b5, he just plays rook to d2. And now the queen can move, the b2 pawn is defended, and if you look at the position, if Pragg doesn't really have anything, then Arjun is just up a pawn. So here we have rook to b3, and now rook to d3, offering a rook trade and preparing rook to c3 to go for rook to c8 with check. Pragg, of course, declines this, and now rook to c3. We have queen to d4, and now queen to d3. Arjun very happy with a trade with his extra pawn. Queen to e5. Pragg, of course, does not want to trade queens, and now queen to c4. We have queen to h2, putting again pressure on that b2 pawn, and now rook to c2 defending, giving up the h3 pawn for the a4 pawn. So we have queen captures on h3, queen captures on a4. Arjun eliminates that annoying a4 pawn, and now we have rook to b8. Of course, capturing on g4 is out of the question. If you do this, just queen to e8 with check, king h7, and rook to c8 will ensure that black gets checkmated. So after queen captures on a4, we have rook back to b8. You have to defend along the second rank. And now we have rook to c7. Nicely putting the rook on the 7th rank, evolving it into a pig, and preparing queen to c4 to go after that f7 pawn. So queen captures on g4, this is now possible. We have queen to c4 and now rook to f8. Pragg defends the f7 pawn, and now Arjun starts advancing his passed a pawn. So pawn to a4, but Pragg also has a passed h pawn. We have pawn to h5, a5, we have pawn to h4, a6, and now objectively Pragg is dead lost here because it's just very easy to, you know, push the pawn to a7, trade rooks, and promote this pawn to a queen. But he plays this weird move, pawn to d5. And now what can Arjun do here? Well, obviously he has to capture it, but how to capture it? You're not going to capture with the pawn, because then Pragg trades queens, and then he might have some surviving chances. So Arjun, okay, captures with the with the queen. And what's the idea behind this weird pawn sacrifice? And both of them were incredibly low on time here, so it was just I mean, if you have the chance, watch the matches live. It will be an absolute thriller for you. Pragg finds queen to e2, and now he wants queen captures on a6, or even if pawn to a7, he wants to go for this queen to a6 check, and now it's basically a draw. King to b1, you're going to play queen to f1 check, and if rook to c1, then you're going to play queen to a6, and so on, with the a8 square being nicely defended. It may be not, you know, an ironclad draw, but you definitely have fighting chances. However, Arjun played queen to c4. He thought his advantage was already so vast that he can just trade queens, but that's the one thing he couldn't do. And now Pragg trades, captures, and plays rook to a8. How do you defend the pawn? Well, the problem is if you play rook c6, then h3. And now if pawn to b4, let's say you want to play pawn to b5, already rook captures on h6 settles the game. Rook captures and now h2, and there is no rook h6 to stop the pawn from promoting. So one of the rare cases where b4 does not win you the game. Or rather, in that line that we've shown after h3. But here pawn to b4 right away without advancing the pawn or going rook to c6 is the best move in the position. So of course Arjun plays it. Rook captures on a6 with check, king to b3, and now pawn to h3. We have pawn to b5. Arjun has another passed pawn. Now it's a passed b pawn. And rook to h6. Pragg puts the rook behind the passed pawn. We have rook to c8 with check, king to h7, and now rook back to c1. Your rook has to be ready to stop the pawn. We have pawn to g5. Now Pragg wants another passed pawn. We have captures en passant, captures, and now pawn to b6. We have pawn to g5 now, making the idea of b7, well, just bad, because rook to b6 check will pick up the pawn. So instead, after g5, rook to c7 check by Arjun. We have king to g8, and now rook to c8 with check, king f7, rook to c7 check, king to e8, and now pawn to b7, threatening mate in 1. But now rook to b6 with check. We have king to c4, and now how do you play this? Well, if you play pawn to h2, and this is the move you really want to play, it doesn't work, because if h2, then rook to h7, the pawn will not be promoting anytime soon. So instead, Pragg plays pawn to g4, which is the only winning move in the position, but of course you have to realize why. Rook to h7 by Arjun, and now there is only one move that wins the game, but I'm sure you guys see it. Just in case you can't, feel free to pause the video and try to find the only winning move for Pragg while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this tricky move. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is of course rook captures on b7. So a big congratulations on spotting that. I'm sure you guys are studying the endgame very hard every day. You know, no breakfast before 50 endgames are solved. Rook captures on b7, rook captures, and now of course pawn to h2, and the pawns are now unstoppable. Rook to h7 was played, now comes pawn to g3, we have king to d5, and now pawn to g2. course, you have to allow the queening of the pawn. Rook captures on h2, and now g1 queen. We have rook to b2. Now you will try to hold this to a draw, but of course it is a very much a known winning position. We have queen to g8 with check. Now the white king will have to go after the white rook, and he will have to give up the pawn on e4. So king to c5. We have queen to g5 with check, king to c4, queen to c1 with check, and now king to b3. Queen to e3 with check. This wins the pawn. So this is the first way, phase of the plan. Second phase will of course be to win the rook and then to checkmate the white king. We have king to c4. Queen captures on e4 with check, king to c3, and now it's time to bring the black king into the game. King to d7, we have rook to b4 attacking the queen, and queen to e1 with check. King to b3, queen to c6, and now rook to d4. We have king to c5, and now rook to d8. We have queen to g3 with check, king to c2, and now queen to g6 with check. We have king to d1. You can't directly connect with the rook. You would like to give a check and connect with the rook, but those are weird arrows. King to c4, so it's better to go for checkmate. Rook to c8 with check, and now king to d3, threatening mate in 1. So of course king to c1, and now queen to g4, attacking the rook, and a few more checks can be given, but here rook to c2 was played. Pragg played queen to a4, and he was in this position on move 78 that Arjun Erigaisi resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. It's a very well-known checkmating pattern. Once you make a move, doesn't really matter what move. Let's say rook to d2, then comes king to c3, and once another check is given, let's say rook to d3 with check, you have to try something, but it doesn't work. You are hoping for stalemate. It's just gonna never happen. Like captures, and now after king to b2, queen to b5 with check, and you're gonna get checkmated. King to c1, king to c3, and now whatever move you make will be checkmate. So that's of course why he resigned after queen to a4. It's regardless of what you play, it is checkmate. But this was the first game of the quicker rapids of the 10-minute section games. And the second game, Arjun Erigaisi has defeated Praggnanandhaa with the black pieces. So that forces blitz tie breaks. And now we are going to show you the first game of the 5-minute blitz tie break. So here again, we have Arjun with white and Praggnanandhaa with black. Arjun came back from the dead, and now he is ready to fight again. So now this is blitz, and this game is absolute madness. So let's check it out. Pawn to e4, pawn to e5, knight f3, knight to c6, and bishop to c4. We have bishop to c5. And here I thought it was finally going to happen. Here I thought, okay, they're both under incredible stress. Here, if you don't play it now, you're never going to play it. I really thought, I was really expecting the Evans Gambit here, but pawn to c3, the main line of the Joko piano. We have knight to f6, and now pawn to d3. We have pawn to d6, castles, and pawn to a6. And here the main moves are bishop to b3, pawn to a4, but here we have bishop to g5. Not played quite a lot, but it is known to be the sharpest line of the Joko piano, so that is what Arjun uses to fight Pragg. We have bishop back to a7, a standard move, not allowing b4 and d4 to come with tempo. Pawn to a4, stopping b5, and now pawn to h6. We have bishop to h4, and even g5. We have bishop to g3, and now as you've created outposts for your knight on f4 and h4, just knight to e7. You want to bring the knight, of course, to g6, and then to f4 or h4, depending on what Arjun plays. d4, striking in the center, and here we have knight captures on e4, and we reach a magnificent position where it seems Arjun mixed up his lines, because here the position is a known one. It's been reached in a game between Rauf Mamedov and Fabiano Caruana from the Gashimov Memorial of 2016, and in that game, Vugar Gashimov played knight captures on e5, and it's a very tricky line where you should play d captures, bishop captures. This attacks the rook, then comes queen to f3, will put pressure on f7 and the knight on f3, but even Fabi did not play this, even because it is the strongest move. Instead of capturing, Fabi just castled here, and okay, it's a perfectly fine move. Fabi ended up winning the game. But okay, here after knight captures on e5, it seems that Arjun mixed up his lines. He played d captures on e5, and it is now as of move 12 that we have a completely new game, and for good reason. This is a bad move, and Pragg, of course, punishes it. He plays pawn to d5. Now, what do? Bishop to d3, the only reasonable move. Now comes bishop to f5, and now you can see what's happening. Queen is coming to d7, castle's queenside, and then h5, h4, and it doesn't seem like white has an active plan against this, and the bishop here on this diagonal is just an absolute monster. So knight to d4, going after the bishop here, but Pragg just continues with his plan. The light square bishop isn't really, a crucial part of the attack. King to h1, getting off of this diagonal, and now pawn to h5, preparing pawn to h4. So Arjun tries pawn to h4. Leko even characterized this as a desperate attempt at the defense. But you have to try something. We have castles, and now queen to e2. We have bishop to g4, absolutely crushing. Now f3 is impossible because captures with a beautiful royal fork. So instead, we have queen to e1, and now knight to f5. Look at this, the pawns. I mean, the rook here, the bishop on a7. Even if you don't know how to play chess, you realize that black is doing something good here. So bishop captures on e4. We have d captures on e4, queen captures on e4, and now bishop captures on d4. A lot of captures, but all for a very good reason. C captures and g captures on h4 now, attacking the bishop here. But now pawn to e6. A wonderful Zwischenzug by Arjun, freeing up the e5 square for his bishop, but Pragg doesn't fall for it. Just knight captures on g3 with check, f captures on g3, and now bishop captures on e6. We have g captures on h4, keeping the h file closed, and now rook h to g8. We have knight to c3. Arjun still has to finish development, and now queen captures on d4. Pragg says, "I love my position. Let's trade queens and let's play this endgame." Arjun says, "All right," but he goes for rook to f4. But now queen to d2, putting pressure on that g2 pawn, and you have to be very careful. If the knight moves, then bishop d5, and well, that's all there is. Queen to f3 was played, and this is a terrible mistake because here Pragg finds rook capture. We can even do this in slow motion. Rook captures on g2. Very nicely done, of course, because the rook on f4 is undefended. So here you can't capture. Knight to e4 was played, attacking the queen, but now rook h2 check. King to g1, now rook to g8 with check, knight to g5, and now bishop to d5. And this is now, I mean, look at this. It's just so beautiful to watch. A rook to d1 was played, trying to trade queens here, but now it's actually, Pragg didn't find it during the game because, I mean, who would in this madness? I can't believe they were playing this well, but it's actually a forced mate in 2. If you can spot it, feel free to pause the video and try to find a forced mate in 2 for Pragg while I give you a couple of seconds. So if you were able to do it, congratulations on always looking for excellent ways to part with your queen. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is queen to f2 with check. Look at this beauty. Only move queen captures on f2, and now, of course, once you free this diagonal, rook to h1 will be checkmate. Pragg did not find this. Pragg played rook to h1 with check. But there is no way to handle this after rook to h1 check. It was in this position on move 31 that Arjun Erigaisi resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. The problem is if you capture with the king, it's really bad. Now comes bishop captures on f3. Also, this comes with check, and after rook captures, now queen captures on d1, and everything. I mean, you're in check. You're getting absolutely destroyed here, and it doesn't help if you capture with the queen. If you capture with the queen, we can do pretty much anything. Queen captures on d1 with check, rook to f1, and now queen to d4 with check. We have rook to f2, and now bishop captures on h1. Loses you the queen, and of course now it's completely winning for Pragg. It's actually a forced checkmate in 4, not a lot you can do here. For example, after you capture the queen, let's say you play something, it doesn't really matter what you play, a very, very quick checkmate will happen. But yeah, very nicely done by Pragg, winning this game. But the problem for Pragg is that the second game of the Blitz tiebreaks, it is Arjun who won, and then he forced sudden death, which means that they play 3-minute Blitz chess, and whoever wins the first game, like if 50 games are drawn, and then one player wins a game, he wins the match. Pragg had the white pieces in the first game, and Pragg won that game, which means that Pragg is now the other semifinalist. He will be facing Fabiano Caruana in the semifinals. Magnus Carlsen will be facing Nijat Abbasov, and that means that Well, it could mean anything. It could mean that if Magnus declines to fight in the candidates, that Pragg is basically already qualified for the candidates tournament 2024, which is absolutely incredible. I've read somewhere that he is the third youngest player to ever qualify for the candidates. I don't know who the two others are. I mean, of course, number one is Bobby Fischer, and the other one, I imagine, I don't know if it's Magnus Carlsen, but could be. No, Bobby Fischer, of course, he is. I believe he qualified at 16, maybe even a little bit closer to 15. But I don't know if Magnus, how old was Magnus when he qualified. But yeah, basically the third youngest player to ever qualify if it happened. So absolutely incredible. And also there was a really weird moment because this is 3-minute blitz chess, and the arbiter started Praggnanandhaa's clock, and Pragg wasn't at the board. And Arjun was visibly very upset by this. He did not want to defeat his good friend in such a manner. Pragg just came back. You know, his clock was already down to 2 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock. He played a move, and then he slowly took down his jacket. He slowly set everything up. You know, he slowly removed the credentials, and you know, then he just started playing, and he won a very nice game. So yeah, brilliantly done by Pragg, brilliantly done by Arjun as well. And interestingly, all of the games that were won in this match were won by the black pieces. And the first game that was won with white, it was the one that Pragg won in the sudden death section, basically decided the match. So very, very interesting stuff here. But yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it and this short coverage of the quarterfinals. We are going into the semifinals. It's going to be really packed. Who do you have winning? Do you have Magnus meeting his old nemesis Fabiano Caruana, or maybe you have something else in mind? Maybe a Nijat Abbasov versus Praggnanandhaa will be in the finals. Well, we'll just have to wait and see. But I'm very, very happy that we are here to enjoy such incredible chess. So yeah, once again, really hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Serena Vaskashap, Yun Yang, Mario Encinosa, Michael Shui, and David Kimura for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the semifinals and the finals until this wonderful tournament ends. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.